Hello. I'm so happy that you're joining me for the very first episode of the podcast, The Fabienne Show. And this is a super vulnerable moment for me. In fact, I have little tears in my eyes because this episode is a look into my heart of what we're doing here today. And let me take a step back. This show is about having it all. As a woman in business who wants a delicious life, who wants a delicious marriage or family or friends, like really looking into what you want in the depths of your heart. I believe that it's a show about permission and reclamation and really looking into your own heart and asking, what do I want? And then boldly going after it. And we're going to touch so many different aspects of that over our time together on each episode of this podcast. And even before we begin, I just want to tell you how grateful I am that you are here with me. This is my first time doing a podcast. I may make some mistakes. I know that right now it's about imperfect action, but I'm doing it anyway. This first episode is about the naming of the show. If you only knew how the dark nights of the soul had around this. And so I'm going to turn it around and make it about you and give you some best practices. But first, I want to take you back. I have had the idea of doing a podcast for years, literally years. I thought it was going to be called Having It All, whatever all means to you. I thought it was going to be called A Delicious Life. I have mock-ups of the Leveraged Business podcast, the Delicious Life podcast, all these different things. And I have talked myself out of it again and again and again, and really stopped myself from doing exactly what I teach other women in business and to do, which is to follow your heart and boldly go after what you want. And I found myself criticizing myself even before I put this out. So, why 3 different podcasts? Well, in my heart, I know what I want to talk about. But if I'm being honest with you, I gave my power away and started listening to what other people thought I should be doing. Someone said, you can't talk about having a delicious life because you're a business coach. And you really actually only need to be talking about a certain thing in business, but don't talk about marriage, don't talk about spirituality, don't talk about money consciousness, certainly don't talk about how to get dinner on the table in an elegant fashion in a few minutes. Fabienne, pick a lane, get in a box, allow people to understand what you stand for. And I was listening, but my heart was screaming, no, I want to talk to the whole woman. I want to talk to the multi-talented, multi-passionate woman who is a business owner, but she's also a mother, and she's also a friend, and she's also curious about spirituality and personal growth and vacationing and all the things. And I realized I was talking to people who aren't like that. I was talking to people who are very linear and said, you can only have a podcast about one thing. And so I tried to put myself in that box, and I decided, okay, I'm going to have a podcast called The Leveraged Business, and I'm going to have one that's called The Delicious Life, and I'm going to do double the marketing and double the episodes. And it seemed like madness. And the defining moment for me was when I attended a meeting with the Transformational Leadership Council. Just some background, I have been trying to become a member of this for 15 years. All the people in the personal growth and development field that you know, Jack Canfield, Lisa Nichols, John Gray, all the people that you can think of are part of this. And I have finally been accepted a year ago into this. And I went to a meeting a few months ago, and there was a woman doing a talk about podcasting. And I went to her breakout session, and she said, who has a question for me? And I said, I have a question about the naming of my show. And she said, so tell me. And I said, I have 2 different shows that I want to do. One called The Leverage Business, one called either Having It All or The Delicious Life. And she looked at me and she said, why don't you just do one show? And I said, because I don't know what to call it. And she said, well, just call it The Fabienne Show. And I burst into tears. And I cried and I cried. And she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "I've been battling the Fabienne Show for my entire life. Because as I was growing up in my teens, then in my 20s, then in my 30s, I had to convince everybody that it wasn't about me. I've always been told, I don't know about you, I've always been told that I'm too much and that I should be a little bit more quiet and that I have a big personality and don't overshadow people." And yet I wanted to be myself throughout my entire 50 plus years. So anytime that I felt like I was taking up too much space, I would say to people, "Oh, wait, I need to stop. This isn't the Fabienne Show. It has to be about you now." And the idea of the Fabienne Show for the name of a podcast brought up all my stuff about not fitting in and who do I think I am. My beloved grandfather used to say, "Who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba?" And I've created this meaning around my life that I didn't want to overshadow people and I didn't want to take up too much space. And yet, after years and years of doing 3-day events and from the stage, hundreds of people attending year after year, and a woman would come up to the mic and she would apologize for being up at the mic and apologize for taking up space. And I would tell her before she asked a question, fix your mic, stand up straight, own this time at the microphone. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Don't worry about how much time you're taking up. Now, speak from your heart and don't censor until what you really want to say comes through. And here I am for more than 24 years as a business coach telling all other women to take up more space and use your voice and speak of the things that are on your heart. And here I am silencing myself and making myself smaller. I know this is just a story about naming a podcast, but for me, it was an exercise in owning my voice and not listening to the opinions of others and mashing up everything that I want to talk to you about. If you knew how many hundreds of topics and things that are on my heart that I want to share with you, you would know that they can't fit into just a podcast about a leveraged business or a podcast about a delicious life. It's about all of it. And so while you may look at me, if you know me, you may look at me from the outside and say, "Oh, she's got it going on. She seems to know what she's talking about." There are moments for me where I have listened too much to the advice of others instead of the whispers of my heart. And I am calling it the Fabienne Show, even though it feels a little strange for me. I am being courageous. I am saying, I know you're comparing yourself to like the Oprah show or whatever, and you don't measure up, but just go for it anyway. Name it that. What am I afraid of? That other people will think I'm acting too much? I just want to do what's on my heart. I just want to give. So instead of asking myself, who am I to have a show called The Fabienne Show? Who am I not to? There may be trolls. I have been bullied. I know what it's like. I understand that sometimes when you shine a big light, it irritates a lot of unhealed people. But I've given myself permission to shine anyway. I've given myself permission to do the hard thing and to not accept the internal self rejection. And so I'm sharing this with you because I want you to think about some of the ways that perhaps you are dimming your light in fear of what others may think. Perhaps you have some dreams that you've been pushing down into the water like a beach ball for years. What will they think? I would be criticized. What if I fail? Perhaps you have a message that you have long buried because you say to yourself, who am I to talk about this? I'm not qualified. What if the message doesn't land? What if they won't get it? What is the thing that you've been talking yourself out of doing or being for fear of what others will think? That's the thing that I think you and I should do together on this journey of this podcast. Having faith that the internal guidance, the whispers in your heart, are really what matters more than anything else that anyone could say to you. Let's drop the fear. Let's courageously go out and do that thing and be that person we want to be and have the conversations, even though it may ruffle other people's feathers. And maybe I'll change the name in the future. Maybe this is the name for right now. And I'm giving myself permission to take imperfect action. It's okay to make mistakes. Maybe it's a mistake to call it this. I don't know yet. You don't know yet if it's a mistake to do the things that you're thinking about. But maybe we can change our minds later. You can always change your mind and just chalk it up to, well, that's my prerogative. That's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. I think in the end, having it all is about giving yourself permission to listen to your heart. Put your ear to your heart and listen really hard. What do I want for my life? What do I want for my business? What do I want for myself? And allowing the whispers of your heart to guide you instead of the advice of other people. And as you listen to your heart, write it down. Understand that it's not just something random. I believe that your heart is a connection to the divine. And when you are being led by your heart, you are being led by the all that is. God, Goddess, Divine Spirit, whatever you want to call it. That advice, those whispers are sacred. And then, once you're clear on that, boldly go after it, courageously, feeling the fear, feeling unprepared, feeling perhaps inadequate, feeling downright scared. Yeah, you will make mistakes. I have made mistakes. I will continue to make mistakes. And yet, having it all is an internal decision that is followed by bold, shaky actions. People have called me fearless in the past, and that is not correct. I am not fearless. I do have the fear, and it may take me a while to do the thing, but in the end, it's my internal compass that will win over. You see, I believe that every single one of us has a song on our heart that was placed there, and that things we are passionate about are not random. They are our calling. Your calling is what's placed on your heart. And it's like a song that only you can sing. And I deeply believe that that song is meant to be sung far and wide. And only you can sing that song. And because there has never been anyone like you in 13.7 billion years, and there's no one like you right now. There can't be. And there will never be anyone like you ever again in the history of time. If that song, that beach ball, that dream, that vision that you have, and you're not giving yourself permission to activate, that song will never be heard. And that doesn't feel right. And so we look at people who have created big things in the world and we think, well, they're just fearless. I'm realizing that's not true at all. They experience the fear too. They experience the dark nights of the soul. Who am I? I don't feel qualified. What if it doesn't work? What will they say? But somehow they dig deep because they understand that regret is the hardest thing. And so do the thing that scares you. Do it with me. There's a part of me that feels very tender with opening up my rib cage and showing you my heart, because perhaps if you've known me, you've only known me as a business coach to women. And yes, I'll say I'm a world-class business coach. Oh, there is so much more that I want to share with you about your impact, creating a delicious life, really turning on the volume on your calling. And so whatever that is for you, hold it in your heart. Give yourself permission. Let's do it together. So I know it's just the name of a podcast, but it represents all these feelings of not fitting in and really trying to manage how people think about me all these years. And I'm just going to step out and be who I really am and talk about what I really want to talk about with you. And I hope that it brings you value, and I hope that it inspires you. And I want to see who you really are. I want to see what you want to really do. So here's to having faith and feeling the fear and do it anyway. Thanks for being with me today. Sending you so much love. I believe in you.